What's going on, guys? I just hopped out of the shower and then I jumped on Twitter to see if there was any news to look at to start prepping for my news radar episode that will come out tomorrow. And lo and behold, Xiaomi has gone and done it again. They've announced another new device. We just talked about some new devices on Monday, and here we are again the next day talking about new devices because they just announced something I've been really excited for and waiting for to see from them, and that is their folding phone. We've seen prototypes from them. We saw a phone that literally folded twice around the back, all kinds of crazy stuff. Well, now we have the Xiaomi Mi Mix Fold, and boy, oh boy, is there a lot to unpack with the Mi Mix Fold. So first off, that's what it looks like. And if you're thinking to yourself that it looks rather familiar to you, then yes, you would be excused for feeling that way because it does look very similar to the Galaxy Z Fold 2 5G because it's the same kind of design. You've got an inner fold, so you have a screen on the inside that folds in, and you have a cover display with a rather large 3-camera bump. We're going to get to those displays here shortly, but first, I do want to talk about the cameras on board here because I think that they're important. With the Z Fold 2, you are looking at 12 megapixels across the board. You have a 12 megapixel main, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 12 megapixel telephoto. Okay, 12 is all across the board. With Xiaomi's phone, you get a 108 megapixel primary sensor. So that is that really high-end Sony IMX sensor that everybody's been using, that we've seen on some Samsung phones even. Then you get a 13 megapixel 123 degree ultra wide. Then you get a 30x zoom 8 megapixel, but it's not really 30x zoom, it's 3x optical, and that's very similar to what is on the Z Fold. So we started off better than, then we're about the same, and now we're a little bit worse than. And then you also get a macro lens. If you're noticing here where they've got 4 things listed, 3 lenses there, it's because the telephoto is doubling as the macro lens. So somewhat similar in the sense that you get a main, an ultra wide, and a telephoto, but it is a 108 versus a 12, a 13 versus a 12, and then an 8 versus a 12. So you win some, you lose some, potentially in the megapixel count. We need to see actual images. Xiaomi's cameras tend to be quite good. I think that it's going to be a pretty good camera setup. What else do we have here? All right, so obviously stereo speakers are really important on a big tablet like that, and you're going to have them tuned by Harman Kardon, which means literally nothing, as we all have learned over the years. Snapdragon 888 and a massive 5,020 milliamp hour battery. I believe that's about 500 milliamp hours bigger than the Z Fold 2. 67 watt fast charging as well versus 25 on the Z Fold 2. So the Mi Fold is looking to top the Z Fold in a couple of places already. So let's keep moving. Looks like Xiaomi is going to be building in something that looks very similar to DeX, which is something that on a Samsung tablet, you can just go into DeX mode. You don't have to plug it into a monitor to access DeX. Well, on the Z Fold, at least as of recording, I'm not aware of any way to enable that desktop style interface that you're seeing there on your Z Fold. Maybe that's something you're interested in. I would like to have it as an option there. And like I said, you can do this on Samsung tablets. So if there's a way to implement this thing that already exists on your Z Fold, please let me know in the comments down below because it's a pretty cool feature. All right, so let's talk about those screens because that's what everybody wants to know about. So the inner screen is an 8.01 inch 4x3 OLED panel, 2480 by 1860. All right, that is a very solid screen. And when we compare that to the Z Fold 2, here's what we're looking at. So this is 2480 by 1860. This is 4x3. This is the Xiaomi display. This is the aspect ratio of that display. Now let's jump over to the Z Fold 2 and you'll see what I mean. So with the Z Fold 2, you're going to have a very similar width in terms of aspect ratio, not physical size, and a little bit more height on top of that. Okay, so there you are there, Xiaomi. There's the Samsung. What's important to keep in mind there is when you're in split screen mode, what we're talking about here is additional height on the Samsung in terms of aspect ratio. So on the Xiaomi phone, are you going to lose a little bit of that height when you're in split window or just when you're in landscape mode? Now bear in mind that the Xiaomi's inner screen is 8 inches versus 7.6 on the Z Fold. So it is a physically larger screen. Okay, so now let's talk about the outer display. So on the outer display, what you have is a 90 hertz, 6.5 inch, 2520 by 840 OLED panel, 6.5 inches. And again, to compare that to the 6.23 inches on the Z Fold 2, and that makes sense. If the inner display is bigger than the Z Fold, well, then the outer display is going to be bigger than the Z Fold 2, because that's just how that's going to work. So this is the aspect ratio of the Xiaomi device, 840 by 2520. And as you can tell by aspect ratio, which is a word I'm saying a lot, it is very narrow and it is very tall. This is a tall, narrow display. What Xiaomi's doing is even more tall and narrow in terms of that ratio. Here is the Samsung device. So there you go. It's a physically larger display, again, on the Xiaomi, but your apps will look narrow and tall, even to a stronger degree than they do on the Samsung device. So from a hardware standpoint, it's going to be really interesting to see what this thing looks like when it gets into people's hands. The cameras look good. I think the screens look really good as well. I think that the inner display being 4x3, I think is going to be totally fine. 60 hertz versus 120 on the Fold is something to keep your eye on. That outer display is going to raise some eyebrows for some people, because a lot of people already thought this was too skinny and tall, and well, Xiaomi is upping that even further. It's bigger, but it's very, very skinny and very, very tall. So that's something you're going to have to consider as well. But let's talk about the last thing here, because it's going to be launching in the Chinese market for now, starting at what would translate to $1,521 US, which is, I don't need to tell you this, a lot cheaper than the Z Fold 2. 12 gigs of RAM, 256 storage. So this is what we were waiting on. We were waiting on Xiaomi to make a folding phone to compete with the Z Fold 2 that would compromise in some areas, but would largely be on par or better than the Z Fold 2 and would be cheaper. And I think that they may have accomplished that. I would love to see some images here showing this thing kind of more from the side. It appears to be thinner than the Z Fold 2, and it appears to be folding more flat than the Z Fold 2, but none of the images I'm seeing posted around are really making it easy for me to tell exactly how flat it folds. As you all know, with the Z Fold 2, I have a case on it, which does kind of disguise that a bit, but it doesn't quite fold flush. Again, the case is disguising that, but it's a little bit of an angle. I'd love to see, have they accomplished what Huawei has, where it's folding virtually flush or not. It's something I would like to see. But overall, it looks pretty interesting. I'm not sure about that tall, skinny outer screen, but who knows? I thought I would hate it on here, and it's been largely fine. So maybe it won't be that bad. I don't know. Love to know what you guys think about this thing down below. We have a new competitor, a new potentially cheaper competitor in the folding phone market, and this should mark the future. This will be the way things will continue going. We will see people making cheaper and cheaper folding phones that will become more and more accessible as time goes on. So guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.